this video, I'm going to be going over how to identify the skins of Arvicolinae, the voles, etc., that we're covering this week. So the first thing that I want to cover is the muskrat, which is so big that you really should not confuse this with any other voles. One thing to note is that the muskrat has a vertically compressed tail compared to like a beaver having a horizontally compressed tail. But you probably won't get this confused with a beaver. All right. One thing to note then about voles generally, as we're getting into that, is how do you look at something and kind of know that it's a vole? Voles have smaller ears than the mice and rats. They have shorter tails, and they don't have the really strong counter shading that we saw in the New World mice and rats. So if you're looking at this and you think, well, the tail is way too short to be, say, a pocket mouse or a jumping mouse or a New World mouse or rat. The counter shading is similar to the house mouse, but the tail's way too short, the ears way too small. So I would kind of look over these and just get a general idea of what do voles look like. Also just kind of generally plain brown. All right, so brown to grayish, we'll see some variation. So let's say you've realized that it is a vole. Now what do we want to look at? Well, we want to look at the tail to body ratio. So remember that we will give you body measurements. We'll give you the total length, tail length, hind foot, ear. And then from the total and the tail, you can figure out the body length to get this tail to body ratio. So for these two species here, the tail is going to be 20 to 25% of the body. That is short. For example, let's pick up this guy here. You can see the tail sticking between the legs, so you can know how short it is. But you should use the measurements we provide to give you the tail body ratio, because specimens, when they're preserved, kind of change shapes a little. All right, so then these two are 20 to 25. How are we going to tell them apart? So the answer is to look at the feet. So here, on this side, Lemniscus critatus, it has hairy feet. You should be able to see very clearly the gray hairs on the top of the foot. For Synaptomes borealis, the feet are scaly. And here, because of the way it's preserved, I have to flip it over to see the top of the feet. It's kind of, but that's what's going on. So we can tell these two species apart. This one, the heather vole, Phenacomes intermedius, don't have to look that closely. The biggest thing is its tail to body ratio is 25 to 35%. It also has brown pelage, meaning the kind of fur coloration, compared to Lemniscus critatus. This is a little grayer, this is a little browner, but you can also use the tail measurements and the feet and etc. to figure out what it is. Right. So then these guys over here all have a tail to body ratio greater than 35%, so a little bit longer of a tail. The one on top, the southern red-backed vole, has this nice red back. In contrast to, say, this regular brown vole, you can see this reddish tint along the back. Another kind of notable one is the water vole. Here's the water vole, again, in contrast to a different Lycrotis. You can see it's really big. Its tail has fallen off, so you can't see how long its tail would be, but it's very big. body length over 125 millimeters. So then, for the ones that we have left, we have 3 Microtus species: Microtus pennsylvanicus, montanus, and longicaudus. Longicaudus is the long-tailed vole. Longa, long, caudus, tail. And here you can see just how long the tail is compared to Microtus montanus in my other hand. So Microtus longicaudus has a tail that is over 50% of its body length. Now, that looks approximately 50%, but I would use the measurements we provide. So then we have Microtus montanus, Microtus pennsylvanicus. How do we tell these apart? Well, we can't. At least we're not going to worry about it in this class. You can tell the skulls apart because, as I mentioned in the skull video, pennsylvanicus has this posterior loop on the M2, but montanus here can't really. And so for Microtus montanus, you would need to know the pelt and the skin in order to identify it, because montanus is the just most generic vole we have.